Oh, wait, it's loading actually, so hold on.
And we're recording. We're live, Lewis. We're live. All right. Well, everybody, welcome to the second episode of the Stoic Sweet podcast. And as we promised, we're going to have some incredible guests on the show. So you're not just listening to us two bumbling boys from Altgeld Avenue. And what's pretty amazing is when you book these big-time guests and you record a 2-hour podcast and then it doesn't record and you're doing it again the following weekend, that just shows you how incredible your guest truly is. So with that being said, thank you for doing this again, Dusty, and sorry for the weird build-up and not the introduction of last time, but you truly are incredible for doing this again. So
yeah,
how you doing,
thanks
sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again. I wrote down everything that I said last time, so I'm going to be reading that verbatim, and even all my mistakes. So I'm actually glad we're doing it again because you get to revisit, and you know how you just have a moment where you're like, ooh, like that sounds weird. I had a lot of sounds weird moments, so I feel like this is my redemption, and if things still sound weird, this is going to be rough.
That's where the editing magic comes in. No, we're keeping everything. You said a lot of great things our last interview, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, but for everyone who doesn't know Dusty, why don't you give us a quick 30-second introduction to yourself, who you are, and why we're talking to you today?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dusty. I started my weight loss journey. I've started a weight loss journey my entire life, but I've been able to, in the past 4.5 years, to drop 320 pounds. And so about 2 years ago, I started sharing my journey online of the
32
things that I've
pounds.
learned.
32 pounds in 3.5 years. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Add a zero and add a couple frustrating moments, and there you go.
You know, it's interesting now when we're doing the podcast, Dusty, is I'm looking at you, and are you sure you're speaking correctly? I know the internet's a little bit bad. You said 320 pounds, right?
Yes, 320 pounds in 4.5 years. And the past 2 years, I've been documenting my journey on social media, just sharing pretty much the victories, the defeats, the lessons, the losses in regards to weight. Anything that was a setback wasn't really a loss. It was more of a lesson for me, but sharing as much as what I've come across in the past, 4.5 years. And it's been a journey of health and overcoming mental barriers. And so I'm sharing my journey now online, and grateful I have the chance to share it with you guys and talk to you about my journey.
Yeah, I think share is an understatement. I think you're considered today as a social media celebrity by definition. I think reaching over 60,000 followers. So I think, if the question is out there, are you making an impact on people? Are people listening? I think they are. What are your thoughts on that?
That was something I didn't really grab onto until People Magazine did an article. They did an article, and it says how one man went from being obese to being a fitness influencer, and that was the first time that I heard fitness influencer. And so at first I'm like, okay, I don't have 14 abs. Maybe I do underneath the skin, but it didn't. For someone who's been overweight his entire life, to be called a fitness influencer, it's something, it's like a opposite magnet. It just doesn't connect. And so maybe warming up to that idea more, not for the sense of the title, but now I have an opportunity to speak to something that I wish was spoken to me so many years before, or a lesson that I learned along the way, mental health wise. I can speak to that and potentially help somebody who's in that, say, mental health barrier of say, overcoming weight loss, overcoming the mental health journey. So that side of it, I'm slowly embracing, and I think I'm just grateful. I mean, it's the stories that I've heard of impact of folks that I've been able to directly relate to. I wouldn't give that up for the world. It's amazing that my journey can impact others. And so whether it's 5 people, 60,000 people on Instagram, whatever it is, I think if I'm at least able to impact one person, then I've paid it forward. So very grateful for that. Very, very grateful for that.
So let me put a little context to this, and it was a little tongue in cheek. And by the way, for those who are just listening, this is Dimitri, and since this is the second podcast, Louis, say your name.
This is Luis Enriquez. You're listening to the Stoic Squeeze podcast, in case we didn't say that earlier on, but we tend to just jump into things here, so we go with the flow.
So about a few years ago when I started my weight loss journey and started posting it online and such, I had an Instagram account, and I just had some family and friends on there, a couple hundred people that I knew. And I started deciding to just post what I was eating every day and kind of use that as accountability to, keep my weight loss on track and stuff. Along the way, you start following other people, like weight loss accounts. And, it's the internet. It's very big. You see a lot of crazy things. So I stumbled across this account that says, Dusty lost 300 pounds. And, like 1,200 followers at the time. They're probably about 20, 30 pictures. And, the contrast to what Dusty is today, and essentially when I met him, this was 2018, the pictures don't look real because Dusty, you look like a personal trainer, and we'll get into that. You are a personal trainer now, and you look incredible. And besides the loose skin that you can't see when you're wearing clothing, there's no way that anyone can really tell that once upon a time, so shortly ago, you were 300 pounds heavier. So I think we even joked around. I reached out. I'd be like, "Hey, are you catfishing? Me and my brother started this podcast, a weight loss journey. You have any interest in coming on?" At the time, Dusty is 1,200 followers, where he's like, "Sure, yeah, we'll come on." So I think our first podcast was April 23rd, 2019. So I reached out to you in 2019. It was probably a couple months before. So we do the podcast, we hear the incredible story. I think at that point, you're at 10,000 social media followers. So overnight, we're just, some stranger reached out to you. You're already, getting some traction online, and the story's really starting to go quote unquote viral to a certain extent. Then I think by the time we podcast again in that June, so just a couple of months later, I believe the number was 30,000. And then we had the honor to podcast with you one more time a few months after that, with you and your incredible wife. And as I recall, it was already in the 50,000s and such. And it's just interesting that, I kind of just randomly reached out because it was incredible what you were doing. And, everyone else followed as well because this story is so incredible. And to say the least, this long-winded introduction and a little bit of background, you've already in such a short period of time. I mean, we're talking about 2019 April. So not that long ago. And this has gotten the message this far and inspired so many others. And we really appreciate everything you're doing. And this story is incredible. So how was that?
I always like when the feedback comes back that it's fake. Because what happens, and really the main driver for a lot of folks seeing my page is I've had a lot of Instagram accounts, and I've said this on TikTok and made YouTube videos about it. They've taken my photo and posted about their particular diet plan. So I've had anything from HCG to keto to paleo, vegan, all these diet pages will put my photo and say, lose weight now and look at this photo. And so I've had a lot of accounts post my photo. And so it's brought a lot of people to my page. And that's one thing I am still trying to understand. And I'll talk to my wife too quite a bit. I go, I understand folks will see me, but what's the difference with what is keeping me around? And you can kind of see how my page molded, and I'm not saying it changed due to the impact, but in a sense it did, because I didn't want to just be another weight loss page of sharing before and afters. I didn't want everything to be a before and after. I knew that if I just shared before and afters, I could get over 200,000 followers, because that's how every other account did it. But I knew since day one, it wasn't the before and after picture that helped me along the way. It was understanding the mental health principles of what helped me develop to embrace and understand what food addiction was, what my food dependency and stress eating was. So I think it was a couple months back when I got the verified sticker that it was just it almost was validation that, the things that I've experienced, the things that I've gone through, they're relating with somebody. They're sticking with somebody out there, and folks are sticking around long enough to, hear the mental barriers that I had to break through, the understanding that I don't work out 40 hours a day and, work out in an insane amount. I work out a lot, but I do it relative to what's a balance for me. So I think it's pretty cool what these past 2 years have done. Couldn't have expected it. In fact, I stepped away March. I think it was right before COVID that we actually stepped away. I felt, and you'll see in the video that I posted, I felt that I shared all that I needed to share at that point. And so it was my time to step away. And I felt that social media had my story out there. And then quarantine hit, and we were home, and it was just a whole bunch of time to just be there. And quarantine was like, wait, this is a major obstacle. Like, there might be a story or two that I could share about overcoming a major obstacle. And so I shared back, March or April, I came back to, sharing. And here we are, 9, 10 months later, still having something to share. And I've never wanted to share out of vanity. I've wanted to have something to share that's of value. And really what's been valuable so far is find a way. That's been my foundation now, is find a way to overcome no matter the obstacle, whether it's through your health or through anything else. You got to find a way through it. No one's going to give you anything. You can't depend on anybody. Yes, there's people around you that love you and care for you, but you've got to take care of yourself, and finding a way to push through obstacles is the best thing you can do. And so, find a way has kind of been my thing. And I'm taking a break right now from social media because my wife and I are welcoming our first child. So I want to spend the valuable time with them and kind of transition with that. But my account and its progress, and how when I met you, it was, it's like 1,200 followers, and, now 63,000. It's been a progressive, okay, this is something that's helping. This is something that's actually doing something. And I almost feel kind of anxious sometimes, because I feel like I want to do more, but I just don't know how to do more. So,
you're doing
here's a podcast that maybe be able to do more, and somebody might be able to hear it. So
yeah, at the very least, you're in steps in the right direction. Really quick, just because I want to say ask a question about something you just said. When did Find a Way come along, and did you have like a epiphany moment, or were you looking for like a slogan or a mantra, or was it a dream? What was it, Dusty?
It wasn't a dream. It was something that because I was sharing my story every day of what I was doing. Hey, I'm working out today. I'm going to go for this. Or, hey, this is what my intake is food-wise, or this is kind of a mental barrier. And so I started noticing saying the words, find a way. Find a way. You got to find a way through it. This is going on. This is going on. I got to find a way. And one thing that kind of stuck out to me is I found a video of me at 534 pounds. This was a week before I started to turn it around. And we went to an escape room. My wife and my sister went to an escape room, and I'm sharing on Facebook Live our experience. And I said, you're going through this, you're going through that. Escape room is you're locked inside of a room for 60 minutes. They give you like 2 or 3 clues, and those 2 or 3 clues lead to something else. Eventually, if you get through enough clues, you'll find the key to get outside of the locked room. And so they have theme rooms from like you're stuck in jail, so you've got to find codes on the wall and codes underneath mattresses to find a way to find the
usually alcohol involved.
Actually, I don't think I've ever been to an escape room with alcohol involved, but I bet that would
maybe
be
that was just me then. I guess you're right. That was
that was Lewis in jail.
Yeah, right.
Drinking Mickey's. No.
I
went to jail because of the never mind. Wrong story. Continue, Dusty.
So you essentially have to find a way to get out. And so I'm sharing on Facebook Live, my experience. And I remember watching that, say, about a year ago, and I was like, find a way. You got to find a way. And so it was something that stuck. And there are a couple other things that people have messaged me on Instagram of like, that's it, that's all. That's it, that's all. Like typically ending my stories.
Well, find a way. Find a way is a great slogan. I'm surprised that like Fila or something doesn't have it. They'd be competing with Nike right now. Just do it, baby. That's
listen,
that's a
guys,
good slogan.
I just made T-shirts. Don't take it because I'm going to take them down. So.
And really, Dusty, that really lines up with actually the theme of our podcast and the journey that Dimitri and I are going through. Although we're on different journeys, it's the same journey. We're all trying to find a way. We're all on this journey. And you said it perfectly. You continue to overcome and face obstacles. It's a fact of life. And I think COVID this year, put the obstacle in front of a lot of people, definitely personally. And again, a testament to your following and the message that you're putting out there in a sea of what sometimes feels like a sea of negativity, and Dimitri and I have had conversations on, is social media the platform to spread positivity? Because we all hear about, the potential negative effects of social media, but it's refreshing. And it kind of reaffirms that, hey, if we want to spread a message, you spread it where the people are. And people are on social media, and people are finding a way to find you and hear you and be motivated by you. So I think that I love how that lines up with the message that we're trying to spread here. But you also talk about, you said you were taking a break and then COVID happened. You've posted a few things on some of the obstacles that you faced there. I see you have, you built your home gym. You kind of mentioned before that your gym was kind of your sanctuary or place that you can get away from things. And that was kind of taken away from you. So How did you react? How did you talk yourself or get yourself into finding a way to continue it at home?
Yeah, I feel like my entire journey has been, I'm going to speak to the, my 30 plus family out there. AOL, when you first logged on to AOL and you watched the 3 screens of the little guy walking and trying to get on the internet, it was a processing moment. Or for you youngsters out there, TikTok, when the little bottom bar, waits to load for you to load it. Anyways,
it's a rough day. They have to wait 2 seconds. They have to wait 3 seconds sometimes.
It's a long time, but processing. That's my entire journey has been it feels like I'm processing, and so when I turned things around and I decided to kind of shift from being 534 pounds to actually taking care of myself, I had to come to the realization that I had a food addiction, and the food addiction drove me like any addiction would. It drove me to make decisions I shouldn't have. It overwhelmed my mind. It warped my sense of reality. It did a whole bunch of things. And as I progressively was losing weight, I had to deal with the food addiction, because how I started my journey, and I'm sure we'll get into this, I started with the gastric bypass, which many will say, hey, that's the easy way out, or it's cheating. And, that's out there. I've seen yahoo.com articles of my journey, and it's all over the comment section about it being the easy way out. And something that I refute now is you can't get to where I am today. I haven't shared any shirtless photos, but I will eventually. And there's no way you could get to where I am today with the surgery. That's kind of a two-pronged approach, in the sense that I don't want anyone to ever think, hey, I'm going to get the surgery, I'm going to look like him. It can't happen like that. Or I get the surgery and it's going to be the easy way. You are going to still have to deal with the food addiction. You're still going to have to deal with the food dependency, stress eating. It's not going to get you to eat what you're supposed to be eating. It's not going to get you to work out. It's not going to get you to go run or go exercise. It's not going to do any of that. It's going to help you start if you need it. And that's the big thing from my doctor is you need this. Like that, you've tried all this. We've put you on this, put you on that, but you need this. And so in me processing the process of losing weight, dealing with actual food addiction, I transferred addictions to going to the gym. And I fully admit that I transferred addictions.
That's a heck of a bait and switch if you're going to transfer addictions. That's a win. So
yeah, I'm moving my...
Talk about making lemonade.
Push. Yeah. So, but in the sense, I transitioned that one, but I also had different, like shopping became one of them. Different things were food addictions, but I had to come to realize and understand that. So,
well, can I chime in? Can I chime in on the shopping? Because I even, and obviously, if anyone has listened to this, I've suffered similar past with Dusty here. I was also severely obese. My peak was 360 pounds, and I went through a dramatic weight loss in a short period of time of 100. And the thing is, like Lewis was the fashionista between us two growing up, and one of the bigger reasons for that, most likely, was because I was overweight and like didn't like shopping. Because like I'm sure you can relate, Dusty, and many of you out there, when you go to the store, those mirrors are terrible, especially when you're severely overweight. So you're not like fond of anything that you're wearing. Eventually, you're only wearing at the big person store clothes. Where I was like at least a triple XL, so I couldn't buy clothes from even like Target anymore, and I just didn't spend a lot of money on clothes because I didn't think I looked good in anything, and it was generic. And then you go through this dramatic weight loss and you throw all the clothes away, and all of a sudden you fit into stuff that you never fit in before. The stuff that I would see Lewis wear on a Friday night when we went out, where I could never wear anything like that, like a form-fitting shirt or whatever. All of a sudden I look decent in. I looked decent in the basketball jerseys that everyone else was wearing when we were kids, and I didn't because I was a little too chubby and whatever. So, like you said, it's one addiction to the other. But do you think that there's like a psychological reason? And one of the things unexplored, especially through your journey, is all the things that you can do all of a sudden that you were never able to do. I think that's one of the interesting things. And do you think the shopping correlates with that?
Yeah, food addiction, like what I mentioned, food addiction being just like any other addiction, it is, in the sense that it is a coping mechanism. It's me coping and utilizing food as a crutch or as a dependency to help alleviate. And so part of dealing with that is transferring addictions, but also at some point coming to terms with why that addiction is controlling or making you do this or that. So, for me, food addiction was, I depended on food. I used it as a coping through stress and through hard times. I shifted that really to go working out and to shopping. And in the process, and it's not like I'm arrived and here I am doing this podcast arrive. I'm constantly in the process of seeing how I deal with things and how I approach things. I really think that I've overcome, overcome the hill of really the major struggles that I was going through, but I'm so close to them that I remember them and I can reference them. But, with COVID and me stepping away, the gym shut down. And all of a sudden, something that I depended on to go to. I had a process. And for me, I found a routine and found a habit that worked for me. Woke up in the morning, went to the gym, hour and a half. As soon as that was done, I went on and did a story on Instagram. Then I shared a post on Instagram of something that's changed my life. And then throughout the day, I would try to check messages and respond to DMs. The next day it would start over. So I'm in a routine, a healthy routine of taking care of myself, documenting my journey, and trying to be as communication as possible. And then everything abruptly stops. And it stops in the sense that it didn't stop because of COVID. Like, I didn't stop sharing my journey because of COVID. I stopped because I realized that the dopamine release that I got from food was the same dopamine release that I was getting from shopping and going from the gym and sharing on social media. So I stepped away from social media to say, you know what, I feel like I've shared my journey in its entirety. But at the same time, part of my addiction transfer was sharing on social media. I was posting every day, doing stories every morning, answering this and answering that. And it was part of that relief factor in me kind of processing who I am. Is I can't, that dependency, that working through the addiction is a process. And when quarantine happened and the gym shut down, I grew in the sense that mentally now I stepped away because I felt that release of dopamine because I was addicted to social media. Well, then I made the conscious decision to step away and to not do it. And me coming back was, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do it in a way that as a dependency or that is an alleviation, but I've got to find a way to push through right now with the gym being closed. I've got to build my own squat rack in my own homemade garage, and I got to do something. So, okay, let me find a way. And in that, it's me understanding that my find a way mindset can help. My find a way mindset can be a message of hope to somebody. So I got back on social media simply to change change my approach to not use it as a alleviancy, but use it as giving and inspiring hope. And so, the gym that you see today, and if you see on social media, I've shared kind of a walkthrough of my homemade garage. It started off with 2 elastic bands and a jump rope. And I did a recent video. It was a time lapse from the beginning of COVID all the way until now. And it's just been an entire process of adding this, adding that. I built my own squat rack. I did that because I watched a YouTube video and I didn't have much money. So I was like, well, how do you build a squat rack with limited money? And I found a YouTube video that utilizes wood. And I went to Home Depot and I built a homemade squat rack for under $50. And so I added that, and I've already had a drill. And I said, well, if I add a hole here and I can put a little elastic band here, I can do obliques. And so what you see today, and you can see it on social media, on my Instagram account, is just a progression of learning what works, learning what doesn't. The same way with me sharing my journey of weight loss in Instagram, I'm learning what works, what doesn't. What am I depending on with my food addiction? And what do I truly need to deal with? And so I've really overcome a lot in regards to my addiction, my dependency on food. And it's not like I've substituted that addiction with something else. You can't substitute the addiction with something else. You have to be willing to commit to a process of actually changing your neural pathways, in the sense that you have a way of doing things. And then when you go on a diet, you go on an exercise program, you're changing things. So why do we always fail? Well, not always fail, but why do we typically fail or typically don't stick to something that we're doing that's new? Because we're used to doing this, and then all of a sudden we're going over here. We want to get back to that process.
Let me tap into that. You said, first of all, it is so impressive that you're able to build your home gym. I really do think you made people think differently, because I think for sure a lot of people said, hey, my gym's closed. Well, it looks like I'm going to veg really out on the couch. And here you are building a squat rack.
Really quick, Lewis, just to play devil's advocate, I'll let you finish this point. Dusty, though, I mean, doesn't work. He doesn't have a pregnant wife. I mean, he doesn't have like much to do. So for him to take time out of his day to, build this home gym, like what about the real people out there that have work and jobs and stuff to go to? I'm making a point here. Dusty has a full life. He has a full-time job. He has a pregnant wife. He's doing all this stuff on social media. The gym is closed. And what is he doing? He's figuring out how to build a squat rack so he can get his workout in. You're a construction professional, Dusty, right? You build squat racks for a living? Nope. Figuring it out just like everybody else. All right.
If you look at some of the cracks in my current squat rack.
Finish the point.
Yeah, I just wanted to unravel a little bit. I think you've done a phenomenal job of showing people the tools to change their body. Could you get into some of the tools that you tapped into on changing mentally? You mentioned a couple things about mindset and changing the way that you process things mentally. Did you tap into anything specifically, or did something click in your head? I'm just very interested in that aspect, because I'm a big believer that the reason why a lot of people succeed and fail when they're doing a physical transformation, especially weight loss, that they fail because they didn't change enough inside. Maybe they changed on the outside, but the people that succeed, like I think it'd be safe to say that you've changed as much, if not more, as a person than you have physically. Yeah. So could you tap into that a little bit and share?
Yeah, so funny that I'll reference this because it probably has little to do with the health journey. But if those of you out there or anybody is familiar with Criminal Minds, it's a show that I think was on CBS, and it follows serial killers and different stuff like that. And
perfectly relates to weight loss.
Perfectly, yes. Right. Yep. If you lose weight, you're a serial killer. Okay, we're watching you.
Most likely.
But
hey, I tell my
episode,
wife. Go ahead. No, okay. Bad joke.
I saved you, huh?
All right, I'll
every
tell
episode.
Don't worry, Dimitri's got more bad jokes ahead.
I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. I've seen a lot of episodes of Criminal Minds. Been a Law and Order fan my whole life and stuff. If my wife ever goes missing, I'm just going to go to the police. I'm like, you guys are going to arrest me anyways, so let's just get this over with. I didn't do this. Like, there's no chance.
One thing that I haven't mentioned this too much, but whenever my wife watches Snapped, she's taking notes. I don't know why, but she's taking notes.
I'm not gonna lie, Dusty. Like, red flags. Lewis will let you know. You got to keep your wife happy. You don't want to sleep with the fishies.
Don't want to do that. Bench press more than me, so yes, I particularly have to keep my wife happy. Yes.
Anyways,
So every what is it? Crime. I'm thinking
True crime,
Criminal Minds.
Yeah, Criminal Minds. Because when I watch Crime Junkies, the podcast, the first little drum beat, I'm just going nuts. Okay, this is not sponsored by Crime Junkies, but If
I'm more of a true crime
Unless
garage
you want
guy
us
and
to.
Generation Y, so we'll shout out a bunch of true crime
there we go.
podcasts.
So Criminal Minds, they have the episodes based on the fact that a serial killer makes a decision to do what he's going to do or she's going to do based on a stressor. There's a stressor. There's a moment where it's like the catalyst for what they did. And so that show was something that I watched in process, and it was something of me sitting back. Okay, what's my stressor? What's my catalyst for making the decision to not take care of myself? Or what's the catalyst to my food addiction? And so the knowledge is power piece is really just taking a step back and going, okay, well, why am I doing this? And a lot of it had to do with stress. A lot of it had to do with emotions. Okay, well, why? And it's almost following the trail of why and being okay and being willing to ask yourself those questions and get uncomfortable with dealing with them. So why was I stress eating? Because I hated my job and because I couldn't stand working there, but I needed it because I needed to provide. I needed to be a stable, figure, but I hated my job. So in that, well, your job's not going to change. You're not just going to go and work at a job that you love. You've got to, there it is. Find a way. You got to find a way to push through it. So it's me finding something that is taking care of myself from a stressor rather than hurting myself. So instead of me binge eating, can I go for a walk? Can I do something that I enjoy? Can I practice? And this was something I incorporated and I could probably speak to a little bit more is, can I practice breathing techniques? Something that I learned along the way. Can I, go into some different mindful meditation practices that might potentially help me in that? A lot of my process in learning mental health wise, it's just learning, building knowledge, understanding that, mindful meditation is a successful bridge in helping those that struggle with substance abuse or, drug or alcohol addiction. Well, if food addiction is similar in addiction, if not worse, well, can I use mindful meditation to overcome that and work with that? So a part of that is really knowledge-based, learning and being willing to learn. I think a lot of us that start the weight loss journey or start the health journey, we want it to happen right now, quick. It's got to happen overnight. I've got to lose this weight in 6 weeks. And understanding that the longevity of this journey is going to make you successful. If you lose 30 pounds in 6 months, it's fantastic. But if you gain it right back, what's the point of losing the 30 pounds? If you lose 30 pounds over the course of 2 years, those 2 years are going to be filled with ups and downs, lessons, and things that you'll learn. But those 30 pounds that you lose in 2 years, not only are you going to be able to keep it off longer because you've learned over the 2 years to develop a long-term mindset, but you've also been able to establish principles that it's not going to happen overnight. Your health, your weight loss, your muscle building, whatever your journey is, it's not going to happen overnight. It's got to take time. And the key to that is consistent approach every single day. And so what I'm saying now is just simply something that I've been willing to say, hey, this is going to take a while. I'm 4.5 years in. I'm still learning. I'm still processing. And, kind of one quick mental reference is when I would go on a diet, I would treat that diet as torture. Well, whenever I would have something that I enjoy, like mangoes, I would treat it as a cheat. We always hear cheat meal. Okay, what's your cheat day? What's your cheat this? Well, I started to realize through the knowledge based of understanding over the long term that when I'm saying something's a cheat, like mangoes, I'm saying the other side of it is torture. So subconsciously, when I'm enjoying this mango, I'm saying that the diet that I'm on is torture. That does something subconsciously. When I talk about mental pathways or mental neural pathways, that's a neural pathway of, man, this diet is torture. Mangoes relief.
Let me ask a specific question to that point, because me and Lewis have differing opinions, and I see it both ways. Because as you started, obviously, when you were at 500 pounds, like you realize, and I think most people do at that point, like you have this extreme food addiction. Okay, I realized that today. Okay, and this morning I'm 251 pounds, and we've talked about my weight loss roller coaster on the first episode. So, and I know that you're aware of it, Dusty, because you were, like I said, we've known each other for 2 years. So you were there during my 100-pound loss, and then the regression this year, I got back up to 288 June 1st. So this year was just, back to the old habits and then a skyrocket back to the wrong way. And I've gotten it under control in the last month and a half, and I'm down 30 pounds. So
Awesome.
I'm going in the right direction. But long way to go. And obviously I did not do what you did. I did not keep it going, because the weight loss is incredible, but it doesn't end there. And I fell into the same trap that everybody warns you about. But anyways, enough about that. When we have an extreme food addiction, because ultimately it comes down to it, and the next time we podcast and stuff, I'm going to have so many statistics on gastric bypass. We're going to explore that really further and just go into the controversy, the lazy narrative of that's the easy way out. I'm pretty sure I can make, I'll give it a shot to make a compelling argument that is the very hard way to go. And it was just incredible even more. But that being said, I'll get to the point. Eating's an addiction, and in the beginning, when you have an addiction, don't you think there's a benefit in labeling things as good as bad, even though there could be some bad psychological, and maybe you adjust that thought later on in the journey when you have more control? But in the beginning, I think it needs to be simplified. And I know that Lewis can control himself, and Dusty today could obviously control himself, and maybe labeling things as bad is really bad mind game, because it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with eating a mango, especially when you're 12% body fat or whatever you are right now and you're completely healthy, right? No one would ever argue that it's probably healthy. So the point is, it's hilarious, one, that you're saying mangoes are bad, and we're not talking about cupcakes or, cheeseburgers or French fries. And, that might be a little extreme, obviously, but what are your thoughts on my point? Initially.
Yeah.
And Dusty, real quick, just Dimitri brings this up because we've had this discussion before, and I've warned against calling foods good.
Well, we'll talk about the Whole
bad.
30 next. We had this discussion just 2 days ago when we were preparing for this. So we'll talk about the Whole 30 in a second, what you know about it, Dusty. But as far as that's the question. Is I know what you're saying. I understand the psychological, and that's not good. You don't want to associate and have this mental torture. But in the beginning, when you're so far gone, and your mind is just full of excuses, and you don't even know why you can't get going. I can never do that. I can never not eat. I can never whatever. You're finding an opposite way not to do it in the beginning. Don't you think the simplicity of it? All right, I asked the question.
So my thoughts have developed on the carbs. That be huge, low carb. That's keto. Everyone's on keto, and so my thoughts have developed in the sense that when I started keto, carbs were just you stay away from.
And
carbs.
Just so you guys know, Dusty's the number one keto model on the internet, not by his permission.
Yeah,
either.
that's trickled down. Actually,
he's never done keto.
I've never done keto, and that's actually trickled down. I've had a lot of less keto pages because what happens, I've got some wonderful friends on Instagram that will look out for those posts and actually comment them, and they'll tag me in it. And my simple response every time is, "You sit on the throne of lies."
I don't want to waste your time.
But I think of Elf with Will Ferrell when he's "You sit on a throne of lies" with Santa Claus. I put that on every post that I find that's someone tags me in, just because it's not, I never did keto. So don't use my picture to say I did a particular diet program when I didn't do it. And so that's been changing over time, which is good. But part of the ketogenic process, or my process, was treating carbs as the enemy. Oh no, carbs are bad. Carbs are bad. Protein good, carbs are bad. And I went about that for a long time. And as I've developed in my process of sharing my journey, interacting with folks, see the benefit of having a social media presence and being able to interact with so many different people is that think about all the messages that I get of different people's journeys that they're on and what they're dealing with. Hey, I'm this weight, I'm this old, I'm dealing with this, and this is what I want to do. I get thousands of those messages.
I would argue you're already amongst some of the top weight loss experts in the world, and you have an edge beyond belief because you had the experience of it. No, I'm serious, because an education's an education. I'm not trying to downplay if you went and got a PhD, but first of all, at this point, it's very clear you could dedicate the time and go do that if that's what you wanted. Okay, you're very young, you can make that happen. So knowledge is just learning and studying and working. Okay, there's no magic to that. We all know that. And then also, you have an insight where you're getting messages from real people that are struggling with the same things. You're hearing their complaints and how to do it. nobody else is getting that. Even when an overweight person is talking to a doctor and stuff, they're probably ashamed of some certain things. They might be lying a little bit and whatever. This is stuff we know, okay? Like, for them to open up because they know that you struggle with the same problem and give you like the real insight of what's going on, like you're probably getting access to that information more than most humans ever because of this like new world that we live on social media. So by default, I'll make an argument that you're a pseudo expert on this subject. And as far as actually those who do and those who teach, you're one that walks the walk, and that always goes a long way in my book because it all sounds good on paper, but until you actually do it and like live the experience, how do you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and those messages that I
Dusty,
get give me. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead and answer. I wanted to get back to the words we use around food.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The process of me seeing all the journeys through DMs and comments and seeing everyone's process. I've come to understand that carbs aren't bad. The overwhelming intake of them is where I guess the danger comes in the sense that we've got to find a balance. And that's one big thing I've learned in my journey and what speaks to more of a successful long-term approach is finding a way to balance what you're trying to do. So here's a great example. I've spoken to and I've chatted with a couple different clients about the ketogenic diet or getting on a particular Whole30 or I haven't had a Whole30. I've had a friend who's done Whole30 and seen success. And then I've had a lot of folks do keto and the Mediterranean diet. Well, if there's a substantial amount of weight that you need to lose, and it's something that you need to lose it for a particular time period so that way you can get yourself in a range. If you're going on, say, the ketogenic diet, it makes sense, but there's a problem in saying, go on the ketogenic diet, because what happens is that we gear ourselves on a diet to treat something so bad that when we transition out of keto, then all of a sudden we don't find a balance in incorporating things, because keto has specific guidelines that you need to stick to. And those are good because you're utilizing, of course, yourself in ketosis to utilize stored fat instead of, glucose that comes from carbs. I understand that process, but there has to come a point where you're transitioning from living that keto lifestyle to understanding that carbs aren't bad. Carbs aren't evil. I myself was on a keto-esque diet in the sense that the first 2 years I didn't cheat at all. So those mangoes that I talked about, I didn't have those. I didn't dive into those. I started literally dive.
All right.
I started to balance. I'll finish with this point. I started to understand that I've got to incorporate everything, but I've got to incorporate everything in the sense that no matter what diet that you're on, the foundation is calorie deficiency if you want to lose weight. So if I want to have mangoes, if I'm at a calorie deficiency, I'm going to lose weight. And so I think that's where the big good bad comes in, is if you go on a particular diet, that's good. But you've got to know that your long-term success doesn't come from a diet. It's starting in something and finding how that molds into a lifestyle that's permanent for you. And I think that's where we get frustrated, is we try a diet, we fail, we give up, we step away for 6 months, and then we try another diet, get into that. And essentially you're trying all these diets, nothing works when you don't embrace the longevity of, hey, you can start with something to get you going, but you've got to start with something that you're comfortable with, transitioning into a long-term plan that incorporates things that maybe you couldn't have at first. It's a process. And that's one thing I've learned about my journey. It's a process of understanding that there are fundamental things that you should stay away from, like soda, which has no nutritional value. But things of like mangoes, or if you want to go have pizza, that you can incorporate, but in a balanced way. So that's my take.
Sorry, I always want, and Louis, we'll get to the point, and it kind of ended up with the way that we talk about dieting and stuff too. I got to say a couple things really quick. I lost 100 pounds specifically being on keto, and I measure my blood every day. It was obviously a great success for me, and there's many reasons. I also did a pretty healthy version with a bunch of keto ice cream binges in between. That was obviously for sure the negative, but it worked phenomenally for me. And obviously I had a lot of weight to lose, and I really like eating meat, and I really like eating vegetables, and I'm Greek. So, olive oil on everything, got my fat content and whatever. The only real criticism when we really crunched the numbers, because I had a lot of data on it, was my protein was probably a little bit low. My before or after pictures, I'm pretty happy with my results. My physical activity was nothing like yours, Dusty. Like, if you guys follow Dusty, you will see he is a complete savage. He is one of these David Goggins type characters. It was every day, 6 days a week in the gym. He showed the work. His story is incredible. We're not even scratching the surface on the amount of work that he did to get where he's at today, and how serious the obesity problem is too. If I didn't simplify this and whatever, I don't think like this happens. The low carb things, the reality is, Dusty, I guarantee you in the first few years, you were probably in ketosis every single day. So you weren't specifically trying to have that as a goal in mind, but ketosis is a physiological state, okay? I think there are some magical benefits that are overlooked. That is very debatable, and we're going to have experts on and go in the weeds on that in the podcast in the future. I think, the cognitive benefits, like you can make decisions clear or whatever, that could be very much overstated and like maybe not backing it up. But that's, maybe my placebo that like helped. But at the end of the day, like people are so far gone at that point at 360 pounds, and the excuses are so much, and the food knowledge is like so little. Like, yes, I acknowledge that only caloric deficits are going to make you lose weight. But if there are healthy strategies like this that do work, and a lot of people can replicate easier, especially by some initial like mental framing, like is like black and white is good as bad, and they're losing a ton of weight and whatever. And clearly I did not successfully keep it off, but that's not because the ketogenic diet doesn't work. It's because I went back to eating cheeseburgers and drinking milkshakes and eating fries and sitting on my couch and doing nothing. Like, I went through a very dark period. It has nothing to do with all the things that made me successful, the 10,000 steps and whatever. And obviously my story is extreme, and like I just completely fell apart, and this has been a crazy year. But all right,
I would argue that maybe the mechanism is fine. The mechanism of keto or low carb or Mediterranean, all that stuff is fine. Like Dusty said, it's maintaining a caloric deficit. But the psychology part of it, I would challenge you, D, that maybe, proving my point that maybe you missed the psychology part. That maybe we label food as bad. Okay, we label food as bad. Therefore, when you eat that food, you're bad. Just like you said, Dusty, you cheat. Therefore, you're a cheater. Therefore, cheating is pleasure. Therefore, the rest is torture. As opposed to changing the way that we label food. And I get that food is an addiction, but I do believe that there is a stronger behavior element to food than, let's say, heroin or cocaine or a drug, where it's purely chemistry. There's no self-talk or psychology that you can do to break a drug addiction. You have to completely cut it off. With food, though, I do think that there's a behavior and psychological element to it that you can use as a tool. And I think that words and the way that we train ourselves to look at food matters. The cheat days, the bad foods, the foods that you must avoid because they're terrible for you. I just think that is a setup for failure. I've seen it. I know that I haven't experienced obesity, but I've also trained hundreds and hundreds of people that have faced obesity. And like I said, I've seen people that have kept it off, and I've seen people that have lost 100 pounds but are still shopping in the big and tall section because they have not changed internally. So that self-talk and those tools and labeling foods, I think all that matters.
Yeah, but you do it's a work in progress, right, Dusty? I mean, like you did incredible. Like, I know the story. We're going to keep going back to that. But at the end of the day, you did, and you changed every way along this like journey. You do change internally going through these processes and getting into these routines. And my argument is, at the end of the day, the problem is so serious right now. Like, the obesity statistics are like so out of control. We're heading in such a bad direction that we need to like look this as more as a fight now, because it is a fight. It's a fight for our survival. Like, I mean, COVID tore through us, guys. We're an unhealthy populace. Like, this is only getting worse. Lewis, you work in the medical field. Like, the statistics are brutal. Like, the cost of healthcare is going to go up. Like, we're going to see the residual effects of this epidemic and like other epidemics that are inevitably going to come in the future. Hopefully we can get more organized and ready and do better. But the bottom line is our populace is unhealthy. We need to do better. And anything that will get any person in any type of routine that will put them in the right direction, hopefully they could evolve from that point and continue to go. And it doesn't, have the psychological torture and whatever. But think about the psychological torture in the opposite direction. Dusty, you could tell this forever and ever and ever. There could be 1,000 books about it, about how every day you were tortured by so many different things that were going through in your mind and whatever. So there's torture on both sides. I'd rather be torturing going in the right direction for my health and figuring it out as we go, because this is a catastrophe at this point. This isn't like a minor problem that only a few people suffer from. It is the majority of us now. I mean, come on. It's still going in the wrong direction. Like, Dusty's out there. He's preaching the message every single day for 2 years, and every year we're going worse. And there's other people like Dusty, too. There's other people like you, Lewis. There's plenty of people that we all follow that are doing the good work and fighting the good fight, and we're still going the wrong way.
I like that you brought up what you did, because I was going to actually speak to it after Lewis spoke, because I know in our many conversations that your heart in all this is the industry. As an industry, as a society, as a human race, we are going the wrong direction. And the big point to that whole thing, it comes down to one moment. It's the one moment that we all deal with. It's the pivot point between how we started and how we're going to maintain. So you look at anyone that goes on a diet, they go on a diet, they see success, but they come to a pivot point to where they need to do it long term. They give up, and then they end up starting over in 6 months. Or what happens is someone gets to a pivot point and they move towards taking care of themselves and finding that pivot that allows them to balance overall. And that's because there are success stories. You see my story, you see other stories out there. There are success stories because someone made the pivot. So with your particular journey, and I think we've known each other long enough that when I share this, it's not just some random guest, but your journey was successful. You went on, you were in ketosis, you went on keto, and it was a good thing that you did. But I think it came to a pivot point to where that pivot between you losing weight on keto to actually finding something that is a balance for you to be successful long term, that's where the pivot didn't go the way it was supposed to. So I think that's where, when we talk about good, we talk about bad. I don't think it's bad to go on keto and to start off with that process. But I think universally, as a human race, we need to come to a point of understanding that whatever we start with has to be different than how we maintain, because you can be in ketosis or go on the ketogenic diet, but you can't avoid fruits your whole life. I mean, I'm sure somebody can, but you've got to be able to incorporate fruit, incorporate vegetables, mangoes for myself, in a way that is a balance. And if you are losing 100 pounds in 6 months, it's good. The weight gone is less pressure off your knees. It's less stored fat around your organs. But at that point, okay, lost 100 pounds in 6 months, you've got to be able to pivot. And I think hopefully this podcast and many other podcasts that we've done speak to the pivot. I had to pivot. I had the weight loss surgery. Weight loss surgery has nothing to do with my six pack, has nothing to do with me working out 6 days a week, has nothing to do with the food choices and me choosing water over soda. It has nothing to do with it. It's because at some point I had to realize that my pivot couldn't be just good, bad, but my pivot had to be, okay, there's universal bad things in the sense that there's no nutritional value to it, but I need to incorporate things I enjoy for the longevity of this journey and not just a quick fix.
Yeah. Dusty, do you think that the tools are out there? You mentioned it. There's keto, there's low carb, there's all these tools out there that people can go out there and Google it and get a book. And you mentioned that the epidemic right now is obesity. Would you guys say that the equal epidemic, I keep on saying pandemic because that's all we talk about these days, but the equal epidemic that we're facing are we a mentally weak society? Like, Dusty, you about 20 minutes ago, you were talking, whether you know it or not, about some pretty advanced mental processing tools. And there's an acronym out there that I'm not sure you're aware of, but you literally went through them all. It's by Tara Brach. She's a psychologist out there. The acronym is RAIN. And the acronym goes, number 1, if you're feeling an emotion, first you recognize it. Okay, you said that. You do that. Number 2 is you accept it. You accept that you're feeling that emotion. Number 3 is inquire. You said that you question how you're feeling. And number 4, and I think this is where a lot of us are missing this, is the nurturing part. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have these emotions. I think we live in a state that we don't communicate those emotions. We avoid those emotions. We don't talk about or share those emotions openly with the people that we're closest to. And I think that is the barrier. The other, if not 50%, somewhere in the realm of a big piece of this problem is that we don't have the mental tools to continue this on long term. Dimitri, your journey, you had an amazing success for a year, and I've seen that. This has been a lifelong journey for you, D, and like many people that use diets. Dusty, you're going on year 5, and again, I keep on hearing from you. Yes, I see the physical transformation on social media, but every time I talk to you, I recognize that I'm talking to somebody that has some serious mental tools in the toolbox to overcome these challenges. And I'm sorry, out of everything we talk about, that impresses me the most, because people don't have those tools. And 2020, for me personally, it made me go back to the lab, to the mental lab, as David Goggins says, and see where I'm weak mentally. And honestly, I was pretty weak in a lot of areas mentally, and how to deal with some of these serious challenges that we face. And I went back and started reading and getting back into meditation and breath work, and back to recognizing emotions. And as hard as 2020 was for me, I was just telling Dee this last night, we were talking on the phone, it also was the most personal growth that I've ever had in any year. So back to you and obstacles and things that we face, and the obstacles you faced this year, and doing things not quickly, but slowly but surely, because there's more lessons in that. That's where people need to realize that that's what forms you. Those lessons and those obstacles and getting kicked back down to the floor and you getting back up, that's where the lessons are. So not so much of a question, but man, every time I talk to you, Dusty, I see some, I'm not sure if you know this, but you got some serious mental tools in the toolbox. And I think that is really the crux of why you're here 5 years later, regardless of all the other, diets and whatever.
I didn't know that RAIN principle.
Any thoughts on that?
I've never heard of that RAIN principle, but that's pretty cool.
The podcast that didn't get recorded, and we're going to ask a lot of books this, and, we asked if there's any book that someone should read, you recommend. Me and Lewis are avid readers. Lewis probably more so than me, and me more so than any other friend I know. I probably average 15 books on a slow year, and I know that's not like a crazy number, but, since most people don't read at all nowadays, and I'll put that with a caveat. I listen to most of my books on Audible, and I'll argue that I get
that's how I read too. Audible.
So, anyways, what do you read, if anything? And like you have, like Lewis says, it seems like you're a man steeped in philosophy. Is this all just? I know you're a man of God. And, is this all biblical based, just philosophy, or what? How are you forming these opinions? How are you growing in this journey, like so strong mentally? And I guess that's the whole point, because I think that you're here because of how strong you are mentally, clearly. So
I don't read necessarily. See, that's the thing I'd like to improve on, is actually getting a book and reading it. I haven't read through too many books. I'm more of like article based. So what I'll do is I'll go through articles based, like Stanford University. I've gone through a lot of their information because I wanted to understand what studies are saying and how those studies interact with society in regards to health and the incorporation of certain diets, the mental side. But I'll spend a lot of time reading articles. A lot of it comes to, it's like you almost have the tools within you. It's almost like you've got blinders to them. And so when I read something online, I take that in, and sometimes I'll just dismiss it. For me, I take that in, and for some stuff, I'll just, okay, how does that apply and how do I incorporate that? So I guess it's that sit back moment of reflecting. That's big to me, but I can't speak too much about reading just because I haven't read too many books. I need to.
Well, that just makes it more incredible. Like, I mean, that's the point. Like, and like
you saying
said,
that it's within us is pretty powerful. Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, and I've been interested and I've read books in the last few years on psychology, like Lewis mentioned, and how the human brain works and how humans learn and whatever. And I think one of Lewis's superpowers is he'll read and digest knowledge. He'll like really reflect on it, try to get to the point, and try to like implement it. As opposed to a lot of times me, I read a lot of these great books and stuff, and I could like recite these great quotes and whatever. But I don't implement it in my real life. And I'm accumulating this knowledge, which as a human makes you more frustrated because you know what you need to do. You know what best practices are. You could see it. It's clear as day in your mind, and you continue to not do it. A couple of things I want to say about my personal journeys. I subscribe to a ketogenic diet that is based off of eating unprocessed foods. So the majority of my diet is the most unprocessed meats I can have. And, sometimes I can afford grass-fed or have people that love me that give me wild game like deer and elk and whatever. But other times I'll buy, standard grocery store meat, Costco and such, and then mostly vegetables. I try to make it a point every day eating a huge salad with a lot of different vegetables, a lot of nutrients. The fats that I'm getting are olive oil, fancy butter, sometimes clarified butter, coconut oil, and avocado oil. That's pretty much it. So I eat pretty much clean. And then there's other keto products that are nice that are out there now, like Quest products, Rebel ice cream, other ketogenic ice creams. And
you say Quest?
Their ingredients are definitely legit. So for the process,
I gotta go, guys. Someone said Quest. Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah, I love Quest. I think we all like Lewis. You like Quest too, right? Like they're a great brand.
Yeah, they're a good company.
High protein, good quality, like product.
Protein cookies. Their bars are good. I just personally don't like. I don't like the taste of protein bars. But if I were to eat one,
what I'm saying is,
if somebody's watching this later and they're seeing my reaction to Quest, I have a big thing on my Instagram about nothing against Quest. Their protein bars are just they all taste the same to me. We will still welcome your sponsorship.
Yes.
Oh, I love Quest. So the point is, the ketogenic diet worked for me because ribeye steak's my favorite, like followed by seafood, followed by all meats, and I love vegetables too and olive oil. Yes, I miss like pasta, bread, ice cream, cupcakes, like blah, blah, blah. But my life was not suffering. It got better, and my life got better and better and better. I'm not the normal person. My story's a little extreme. At the end of the book, Good to Great, they talk about, I don't know if you know that book, Dusty, I think Lewis does. It was a study. It was a great book, I think, published in the 2000s or whatever. It followed like 10 companies or 11 companies that outperformed the stock market by all other public companies by X amount. So they were the best in the industry. And they studied the commonalities between those companies. One of those companies was Circuit City, which obviously went bankrupt, like ironically within like a few years after the book got written. But they talked about all the principles that got Circuit City successful. Okay, they had like the best customer service. They went over the top. Like even their delivery drivers, when they dropped something off, were like friendly. They held themselves to high standards. The salespeople on the floor got commission, so they were highly incentivized to sell or whatever. Then a CEO came, changed all that, tried to like cut costs to compete with other people like on prices and stuff like that, and they were bankrupt in a few years. And there was a forward at the end of the book because this was going down. Imagine the UCLA basketball team in the 60s or 70s that won like the 10 championships in a row. Stop winning championships, and people were like, this can't go forever. And then eventually UCLA faded into obscurity. Well, when John Wooden or whatever the coach's name was putting those teams together, and they were doing all those like best practices, and they were just like a well-oiled machine of like greatness and hard work and best recruiting and, just good coaching and whatever that made them successful for all those years. And then they stopped doing that and they got less successful. It has nothing to do with those practices not being successful. So when I crushed it on the ketogenic diet, I was eating meats and salads and walking 10,000 steps a day, and I was on it, whatever. And I lost 100 pounds in 9 months, and it wasn't even hard. I felt great. My life changed in every single way. It was such a positive. It was incredible. So any sacrifice that I thought I was making, whatever, to me personally was a clear choice. The second I stopped doing that, and not only, I wasn't eating carbs as in I was eating mangoes, Dusty. I was eating carbs as I was eating like cheeseburgers at McDonald's, 2 Chick-fil-A sandwiches, big beefs at Portillo's, French fries, whatever, all the stuff that got me to 360 pounds. I stopped getting 10,000 steps in, whatever. So, like, the unsuccessfulness is not the unsustainability of the ketogenic diet or whatever. Like, clearly it was my eating habits coming in a landslide and me just completely letting go. So that's like one point. There's very bad ketogenic diet versions out there that are very, very unhealthy. And another thing I want to say about ketogenic diet is if you're not going to like commit to it and whatever, and you're going in and out, and you're like, honestly, any type of yo-yo dieting where you're eating healthy for a few days and then like going off the rails, binging and whatever, is very, very, very unhealthy. What I just did, losing 100 pounds and then gaining like 50, 60 pounds back immediately within months, is very, very unhealthy and dangerous. And your body can only like take slides like that a few times. And what I need to do, and I'm very lucky and fortunate, is I got access to wonderful gentlemen that I'm speaking to in front of me. I have the model. It's about the work. It's about the mindset. And when for me, the way that I frame my life going forward is I'm not getting loose with my standards anymore. Like, I want to be as healthy as I possibly can for the rest of my life. I want to inspire other people to know that I was once a lost soul like them, not knowing what to do and controlling this. And if I can do this, you can absolutely do this. I want to follow in the footsteps of Dusty. And guys, you're listening to this, right? Like, the information's out there, the model's out there. There are people out there. Follow Dusty every day. He shows it. And I mean, he's taking a break right now, whatever, but follow the journey from the beginning. I mean, it's just incredible, and it's so 2 + 2 for me at this point. It's about the work every day.
What's the pivot point? I think this is probably what speaks to exactly what you're so passionate about as far as turning the obesity rate around. What was the pivot point for you, or what will be the pivot point now? So you're down 30 pounds. I mean, that's remarkable. And the fact that you're able to lose 30 pounds after putting some back on, that's what many don't do, is they lose it, they gain it, and then they stick back at that gain and gain on top of that for years to come. So it obviously shows that the ketogenic diet has some good benefits. I've heard great things about the carnivore diet. I've heard great things about different things from different podcasts and different research. But the pivot point now, you're down 30. Say you drop your additional. How much weight do you think you have left?
So I got some goals. I got some goals, and we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. I'll bring up my last one that I was super successful in. So in 2019, I made a New Year's resolution for myself. I got some traction going that I was not going to eat at restaurants at all for 1 year. And if you don't know my background, I used to own fast food restaurants for about 11 years. And I not only owned fast food restaurants in that period, I probably ate at other fast food restaurants at least 5 times a week, and that's not an exaggeration. So my whole life revolved around fast food and eating. And then on the weekends and stuff, or if I ever had a day off, I was at a steakhouse, like going to town. Just eating, like my whole life was eating. So for me, it was a very personal decision. It also was a very BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, because honestly, this is somebody who ate at a restaurant pretty much every day for the last 20 years. Like, to not eat at a restaurant at all in any capacity for a year, and for someone who's never completed a New Year's resolution, ones that were way less like hard than that too. And I crushed it and I ran away with it. And it just gave me, if anything, just self-control. And I know New Year's resolutions in itself are controversial because, like, I guess the side argument is, like, you don't want to put it out there if you're not going to do it, and then it's like a psychological, like, blah, blah, blah. But to, like, Lewis's point, are we too weak as a nation now? Like, do we need to just start challenging people? Like, come on, like, find a way. Like, if you can't even get past these, like, small barriers, like, you gotta try. Like, there's got to be effort in life. Like, you got to have a purpose. Sorry, I'm rambling. Anyways, I complete the goal. This year's New Year's resolution, Dusty, is to make sure I get a side project I'm working on done, and to get to 190. So this morning I'm 251, and then from there I have a lot of goals. I kind of know how to lose weight at this point. I'm going to keep on the path, and we're going to keep tweaking and following this. So you'll see a lot of posts if you want to follow this weight loss journey. And me and Lewis are going to do like side updates. But 190, I want to make it simple. And that's where I want my standing weight to be, and then go from there. Speaking of which,
so you're on your journey to 190.
Yeah.
I'll just speak to this real quick. You get to 190. What's your pivot? So this is huge because it speaks to exactly what you're passionate about. What's the pivot? You get to 190. What keeps you away from doing what you did before? That's huge. And that's honestly, we talk about what my journey is I came to that point of the pivot. And I went a direction that has allowed me to be here today. That's the only reason why I'm here. So, come 2 years from now, instead of us having another podcast stating that time I went down to this point, and then I went back this way, and then I'm back down this 50 pounds. What's because technically, like, you think about it, and I have this all the time when I'm talking to folks through my accountability calls, is I know it's frustrating that the scale isn't moving in a week, but once you lose those 2 pounds, realistically, if we're doing it right, you're never going to have those 2 pounds. You're never going to be 304 ever again. You're never going to be 268 ever again. So if you're going to fight through getting over that 268, 265 hump, you're going through that technically once, because if you do it right, you're going to overcome that hump, you're going to drop weight, and you're never going to be back there again. So would you rather get over that 268 hump in a week just to go right back to it later? Or do you want to get over that 268 hump, have it take a week or two, have it take the time that it needs for it to drop and for it to process so that you never go back to it again? So that's the big question I have, and what is really allowing me to share my journey here and how it would help is my pivot point was that knowledge base, that RAIN principle is acknowledging that. What's your pivot point? What's going to make you successful when you get to 190? Because I fully believe you're going to get to 190. You might even get to 189 and have 16 8-packs and, do whatever. But what's the pivot you would say?
Here's the pivot. And honestly, here's the truth. It's the Stoic squeeze. It's exactly what we're doing. It's following people like you every day, keeping you in my life. The model is out there. And honestly, I'm on a mission. Like, this is nothing. Nobody's listening to this unless you post this and you're not posting it on social media. Like, we'll probably get a handful of family members and whatever, but this will be out here till eternity. And Lewis and I are going to do this till eternity. We're on a mission to change the world, like, for real. 2020 has got me fed up. You guys ever see, like, what's that movie in the 70s, The Network, where the guy goes on that great...
I'm thinking of the wrong song. Caught Up.
Like... Well, the world is really bad. As we podcast right now, my aunt is in the ICU on a ventilator in Chicago, and we're just praying that she makes it. And she was on 100% capacity, meaning that's the end, guys. If anyone doesn't know what that means, and luckily it's gone down to 70 today, but it's a long road to recovery. I'm very embarrassed about the state of a lot of things. I think America is one of the best ideas and greatest countries ever, and at this point we should all collectively be ashamed of ourselves for many reasons, and I'm just going to say it. And yeah, other countries like suck too and blah blah blah. If you don't like it, leave. Like, I've heard all the nonsense arguments, but if you're not vested in making this country better right now, stop complaining, because all I hear is complaining everywhere. All I did was complain and make excuses in my life, and whatever. I'm a crazy person now. I just want people to get healthy. That's one thing that I can inspire. I think I've already done. I've showed. I had a lot of problems. Dusty, I think we need to share the problems, be open with them. You've done a tremendous job. You'll continue to do a tremendous job. So I lost the weight doing a podcast last time, the Spartan Brothers podcast. This accountability, this free therapy that I'm getting right now, I'm paying X amount of money to invest in some simple equipment and services that are amazing. And I get to talk to people like you. Tomorrow, we're talking to a PhD doctor that trains Olympic athletes. This world is crazy. I live in a Mickey Mouse world, a Peter Pan world where my wildest dreams come true. What am I doing with my life? What is my purpose? Am I just here to exist, to buy cheap things from China and buy bigger houses,
$3 shirts,
cars from other countries too, and whatever? If we don't invest in ourselves, if we don't invest in our communities, if we don't invest in America, what are we doing? What are we doing?
There's another term out there. It's called the Kaizen principle. Have you guys ever heard that before?
I've heard of it. I don't know.
It's a Japanese word. And essentially, just to simplify it, it's to be in the constant state of improvement. Okay, actually, with the company that I work with, actually, that's one of their principles is to always look for improvement. And D, I think that's part of what people need to realize. To be a human, I think, is to be in the constant state of improvement. But even you said like, hey, people get pissed about living in America and we suck and the country sucks or whatever. I think it's unfortunate that people can't recognize that America is a great country, but we can improve and should be always improving. But I'll go on that tangent some other time. Dusty, I had a couple questions for you that you said, and it kind of connected some of the things that Dee was saying, and that the ketogenic diet works. It just didn't work for me this time. And Dusty, you said, a lot of diets work out there.
Wait. I'm not going to allow that. It worked for me. I stopped doing it.
Okay. All right. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to that point in a second. I'll get back to that point in a second. But Dusty, you said, keto works, carnivore works.
I just want to clarify. You guys are basically, the argument is it's not sustainable. Like I fell out because it's not sustainable.
It will be sustainable when it is sustainable.
Well, here's the thing. Society, like diet, like let's go back to the point where like the words like matter and stuff. What does diet even mean? Our diet, if we're doing collectively a standard American diet, like it's very bad.
Well, if that's clearly not working.
If that's the standard, like what are we even talking about? The ketogen, the diet, the negative diet is going to be attached to that. That's not sustainable. The standard American diet, the way that people are eating, is not sustainable. It's
standard doesn't mean that that's the standard. That's just the standard that people abide to today.
The standard is what I guess the broad American diet, the mass American,
the general American diet.
I guess we'll gotta reterm it. The general American diet is not sustainable. Yeah. We're sustaining to the grave. Like we're headed right there.
What I was gonna technological problems here with my mic. Dusty, what I was going to ask you is, you're saying that that the ketogenic diet works. You've read that the carnivore diet works. That's on the flip side of social media. It's easy to hashtag or find the hashtag keto diet successes. I always bring this up. Is there a hashtag that says keto diet failures? Are people posting that? Or are people posting carnivore diet failures? I would suspect that that's harder to find. But that's the on the flip side. I think the caution on social media, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, is that people, yes, for sure, are posting their keto diet successes. And D, challenge you right here too. You posted your success on the keto diet on social media, but are people posting, hey, here's my failure.
I posted my failure
on this diet. And that's where I step in my experience, not as personally combating obesity, but again, working with people over the years, that when you restrict and completely remove foods from a diet, mangoes are bad, carbs are bad, I only stick to vegetables and meat, soda is bad, even that. I think that, again, I caution against eliminating foods completely. What are your thoughts on that, Dusty, on the diets that we see out there that are working for everybody? It seems like everybody is having success on keto, carnivore, South Beach, whatever. What about the flip side? What do you think is out there on the flip side?
So I guess the process that so I'm thinking about somebody who is starting a diet, or myself when I started a diet, or the many failed diets before. If you were to tell me that I could have an assortment of items, okay, so I guess I'll say this: calorie deficiency isn't spoken to as much as a particular diet. So if the foundation of every diet is calorie deficiency, you're going to be successful. Now, it depends on how you approach your particular said diet that is going to speak to the longevity of your journey. So if you're somebody that wants to get healthy, wants to drop some weight, and you're approaching a particular diet as a end all be all, I think that's where the danger comes in. The resources that are available through the ketogenic diet in dropping weight in a significant amount of time is there. It's beneficial. If someone's 380 pounds and they say are not going the surgery route, if they need to drop weight or drop a significant amount of weight in a shorter amount of time as directed by their doctor, the ketogenic diet is a great resource for that, because doctors will say you've got a particular amount of time to not drop the weight. It's not saying that doctors will recommend you taking 5 years to drop all the weight, but if someone is over 400 pounds, over 350 pounds, losing a significant amount of weight to start is going to be beneficial.
You've also
so getting on the
ruined your
ketogenic diet
insulin
is going to be great.
processing as well. So therefore, the keto diet could be beneficial. Sorry, go on. Go on.
Yeah, so there's benefits to that, but that's where the danger comes in, is how do you transition into something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life? And how are you going to really approach food in the non-negative sense, where food isn't bad, it's how you incorporate it successfully into your journey. How do I have pizza? How do I have mangoes, but in a way that's balanced? I mean, there are fundamental things that aren't good for us. Highly processed food just isn't good for us. So there are universal things that we need to stay away from, like soda, stuff like that.
But Dusty, would your results completely vanish if you had a soda today for lunch?
Okay, but also, I want to ask this:
they wouldn't vanish, but they would lead me to. It's and that was a big mental health barrier for me. Trigger foods.
Okay.
That would be a trigger for me to open up a bigger door to me to go down a road that I shouldn't go down. So I avoid it because I recognize mentally that is a door that could open up a bigger door that can get me in trouble later.
Okay. I completely understand that.
That's the Pandora's box that I'm trying to tell you, Lewis. Like I hate to say it this way, and like the drug analogy again, man, it is a trigger. So like, I know it's bad psychologically, but like you got to commit at the beginning. Like I'm just staying away from this, and I want to ask this specific question because I want the actual details. Like you said, you went 2 years and you never ate a mango because a mango was bad, and we all know that a mango is not bad. Okay, so what is your real diet today? And the foods that I know we don't want to label foods as good as bad, but the foods that do get labeled bad, what do you actually eat that gets labeled bad today? And how often do you actually eat it?
I guess I don't label something.
But like a milkshake. When's the last time you had a legit like Five Guys milkshake or equivalent, real ice cream?
Or if milkshakes aren't your thing, something that you would consider off
a pizza.
I haven't had a milkshake in years because I just don't like milkshakes. But I have pizza.
So there are. This gets into a longer conversation. The value of food. So I enjoy things that are valuable. So I can have anything as long as the. Okay, so the last time I'm trying to figure out a way to. I'm trying to find a way.
Intrinsic joy. This is my favorite meal. My grandmother used to make this. Is that what you're talking about? Like it has emotional value. It's got intrinsic value. I want this.
Yeah, but like, okay, so if I'm going to have that meal, so say if it's pasta, it's fettuccine, it's breadsticks and pasta from Olive Garden.
Yep.
We'll say that. If I'm going to have something like that, I'm going to have it and not feel bad about it, not treat it as bad, but I'm going to incorporate it with the rest of the day. So if I know that I've got 2,200 calories to work with, then I know that I need to fit in what I enjoy, what's according to plan within that. And I have to find the value in so it's approaching a mindset of longevity in that so currently not because of Thanksgiving, but over the past couple of weeks, because my wife is 9 months pregnant, I have taken off the typical restrictions. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But I've had stuff that I typically stay away from. So like, I was diving into chips, like these late July chips that were really good. I was diving into, so a lot of stuff that historically I never dived into. For the first time, I was diving into it. Not completely. This is what
we're editing this out immediately. This is a fraud.
This is
done. He's down to 30,000.
No, and honestly, I'm going through.
What I'm taking away, Dusty, is you're incorporating these foods. You're not doing it every day.
You're still swirling around this answer. How you know what I'm asking? How often will you have this Olive Garden pasta? Is this once a month, once a week, 3 times a week?
there's not a consistency with it. 1 week I've had it 3 times a week. 1 week I've had it once. 1 week I've had it 4 times a week.
Okay, so like this isn't.
But it's coming to terms.
Yeah, and
it's coming to terms with how it fits into my plan. So I know.
How long have you been at this point? Because I think that's great, and you obviously are handling it well, and you're not gaining weight, and this is not a trigger anymore. So how long did it take you to get there where you can incorporate things like this? Because generally, in a weight loss journey, I would tell people, avoid a trip to Olive Garden at all costs. At all costs. Find other things to eat that will make you happy and get that out of your mind, because that's going to probably set you down a bad path. Because I can't control myself at Olive Garden. Those breadsticks, like, Lewis will eat 3 baskets.
Yeah, but see, that's. I love that you said that. Control. Yeah. It's coming
you're here now.
You're here now.
So how long did it take you to get there? Because you didn't incorporate mangoes for 2 years.
Yeah, so the 2.5 year, I'd say the 2.5 year, 3 year process of me actually dropping the weight and getting down here. There's my pivot point. My pivot point is, okay, I've lost the weight. How do I maintain? And I speak to this so much now. It's less about how you lose the weight, but it's how you maintain and how you keep it off. And so my approach of keeping it off is incorporating a proper balance of things that I enjoy, but also sticking according to plan. A higher protein diet has shown through studies to keep you satiated longer. So I stick to a higher protein diet. It's not that I treat carbs as the enemy, but I just find more value in protein. So when I look at something on the label and it's got 10 grams of protein, it's got 12 grams of carbs and 1 gram of sugar, I'm going to say choose that over something that is 2 grams of protein, 12 carbs, 1 sugar. I find value in protein because that keeps you satiated according to studies. So I'm going to prioritize that in things that I enjoy. But then when I step off and say I have Olive Garden breadsticks and pasta, I'm having that in relation to my overall day. So I'm not having my regular day and then having that. I understand what my maintenance calories are. And if I understand I can incorporate things I enjoy with my maintenance balance, then I'm okay.
We're getting close to wrapping it up. That's a lot of really good points, and that's also encouraging.
No, we've got.
But anyways, one really quick question, and I know we didn't get into this at all, and I remember from previous podcasts. So, what about the dumping effect and all that? Does that not apply to you anymore? Are you like past that?
I don't experience that. One thing that my doctor told me, the bypass, especially when you start the journey with the bypass, you have an issue with dumping or something to where if you have a intake of something that is off, say like a higher sugar intake, like a candy bar or something like that, that'll cause a reaction to where you'll kind of feel this flush feeling. It's an insulin imbalance that you're experiencing because you're bypassing a portion of your intestine. My doctor said that after about a year to year and a half, your body regulates, and you could still experience that, but your body also regulates. So you won't feel the restriction. You won't feel you might not feel some of the things that you felt initially. So dumping wise, if I have something that is, no, because I've had that.
So
I'm trying to think of ways I've experienced it, and I haven't recently.
Because
I haven't experienced it.
And even previous podcasts in 2019, so not within the last 2 years with you. Can you eat anything now? Do you eat anything now? Your body's fine. And
I could. I remember. What was it? A couple years ago, we moved, and this was a big move day. Like I spent 14 hours moving, where I was just depleted, and I had like 2 or 3 donuts, just all on one whim. Just 2 or 3 donuts all right off the bat. And this was, how long ago was this? When did we move? This was probably right when I got down to my lower. So probably one of my first things coming off of my 2.5 to 3 year kind of losing weight, not cheating. One of the first things was devouring 3 donuts after a big move. And I didn't feel a thing. In fact, I was hungry afterwards.
Food with no breaks.
And it just, food with no breaks. So I went right into donuts. So I enjoyed things probably right when I got down to my lower weights. But see, then that's where the balance comes in. I just moved for 13 hours and I probably burned 8,000 calories. Can I afford 3 donuts? I probably can. But here was my problem with that is the donuts opened up a door that potentially triggered me to get in something else. I think the very next day I went into a Costco and I saw a container of donuts and it was in my cart. And before I got to the checkout, it was out of my cart because those donuts were a trigger that led me to a door that potentially would get me in trouble. So that's where you have to, when I talk about the acknowledgement, the understanding of knowledge and how to do things, it's coming to that process of, okay, this is opening a door. So should I go into 3 donuts next time? Probably not, because that opened a door that might have potentially got me down a route that I may not have been able to come back from. So it's that knowledge piece.
Dusty, you got some pretty amazing coping mechanisms built in.
Really quick,
what would you
I'll let you wrap up, but I was just going to say, Dusty, we're going to cut this all up, and basically the message is going to be Dusty ate pasta and donuts, lost 300 pounds with this weight loss supplement right now, $29.99.
Hashtag olive burger.
Let me grab a burger. Can I grab a burger?
Dusty.
Hi guys, I lost 300.
I'm gonna Photoshop a burger right in there. What would you recommend to somebody that has failed on some diets, and maybe it's the psychology and the mindset part? Where would someone start? You said you kind of found it intrinsically, but you just mentioned a story where you brought out your coping tools and you recognized something and you ended up doing what was the right thing to do, put the donuts back, whatever. What would you tell? Where should someone start?
Biggest thing to start with for me, and what I recommend, is tracking. If you understand what your balance is, then you understand what you can incorporate within that balance. So you can go on a particular diet and stuff like that, but again, calorie deficiency is the foundation of everything. So if you're going to go on a ketogenic diet and you've got strict protocols, you should be working with a coach, especially when it comes to protocols and making sure that you're doing everything you're supposed to. But at the end of the day, calorie deficiency is the goal. So MyFitnessPal is a good example. I put in my weight, my height, my activity level, and it gives me how many calories I should have if I want to lose 2 pounds a week, 1 pound a week, stay at the same weight. And so I understand that. And I think that's the biggest way to start, is understand your balance. If I'm walking into a Black Friday sale and I'm just going to walk into Best Buy fresh and just look around, I'm not going to be able to find too many deals because I don't have the ad. I don't actually have the ad in front of me knowing what's out there. But if I have the ad, I'm sitting in line, I walk in, I know where to go, I know what to do. Tracking, understanding your food balance calories wise, is essentially you having an ad before walking into a Black Friday sale. You know what you can have. You know what you can do. You know what you can work with. You know what is going to go on. If you're just going to start a diet, start an exercise or health program, just not know and not have a plan, you're going to fail. That's why people with New Year's resolutions, oftentimes people fail because they jump into a gym, they go 6 hours a day or 2 hours a day for 6 days a week. They get burned out because they didn't have a plan. And all of a sudden they're done and they're starting back over in 6 months. Or you're starting a diet, you see wow, this guy lost weight before and after. He probably didn't do keto, but they used his photo. Well, I'm going to do keto and let me get on this program. Okay, I do this. Well, you don't have a plan. You don't have something that you've planned for. Tracking gives you a plan. Tracking gives you a map on how to be successful. Right now, I'm trying to drop some weight because of, say, Thanksgiving and stuff that I've had over the past couple of weeks. I'm trying to drop some weight. It's not significant. It's not big, but I'm trying to drop about 10 pounds. Well, I've been successful so far in dropping 6 of the 10 pounds simply because I have tracked how many calories I've been intaking the past couple of weeks, but I've also leveraged that versus how much I'm supposed to have, and I'm learning what I could have to be successful. So I work East Coast time and I live in the West Coast. I wake up at 5 a.m. My problem with that now is I wasn't in that range about a couple months ago. So now I have a 3 to 4 hour window of when I was typically asleep that I'm now awake, that I have the potential to eat. So what was a big problem for me, months ago, was I was starting to eat at 6 or 7 a.m. I had a larger eating window because I was going to bed at the same time, but I was waking up earlier. So I had more of a time frame to eat. So I understood that. I understood that that was a problem. So I started tracking and I started looking at my calories and how I was intaking. And frankly, I was having 400 calories before 7 a.m. That was a big problem for me. So I adjusted. I made some tweaks to what I have in the morning. So now I'm able to eat in the morning with this adjusted schedule, but I'm not over in my calories. I'm not on a calorie surplus where I'm gaining weight. I'm now at a calorie maintenance or a calorie deficit to lose weight. So that knowledge piece is huge. Track your calories, understand what you need to have to be successful, and that's definitely a good first step.
Yeah, you've said it throughout the podcast, but you do have a lot of knowledge in nutrition from your understanding of protein, calorie deficit, tracking. I think is a great first start. I do think that people need to understand what calories are, how many they are, and you don't have to track for the rest of your life. I've been tracking food on and off for about 15 years, and there are times where I'm not tracking, but I know how many. I can look at a plate, and Dee could attest to this, that within 95%, I could come pretty close to the calories and macros, but it takes practice. And you've had a lot of years under your belt of practice, but I think that's a great way to start.
Hey, Dustin, actually, it's a great idea, and I firmly believe this, and I tell everybody this. I feel, first of all, when I give weight loss advice, it's pretty qualified because I come from the approach that, A, this is exactly what I did, so I'm just sharing exactly what I did and like my experience with that. And B, there's many ways to do this, and find a way that's going to work for you, and this is why this worked for me. So anything you can do to start getting healthier is better than nothing, and it all starts with the beginning. And then, like, there's a lot to this. You just, like anything else, keep building more knowledge. And here's the trick of it, everybody. Like, you're going to start feeling better and better and better, and your life's going to start getting better and better and better. So this is a no-brainer. Just start doing something, and you'll see what we're talking about immediately. Then after that, if you can't commit to 5 minutes a day tracking your food and you think you're going to be successful and like this is where the block is, like, come on, guys. Like, get an app on your phone. There's many out there. There's one that I'm going to try, this new one that's pretty interesting, and I'm going to start posting it every day because that goes for myself. And I have a weight loss journey right now, and I have goals to accomplish. So I track my calories in this my 100-pound weight loss journey. And I averaged about 1,800 to 2,200 a day. So you only lose weight when you're in a calorie deficit. And if you're not even going to commit to tracking your calories and trying to figure that out even to a certain extent, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
Simple, but the implementation is key in committing to it. So, Dusty, 2021 is around the corner. What should the people that follow you today be excited about as we look into another year?
Yeah, so 2021, we are welcoming our first child at the end of this year. Really, any moment my wife could have.
Can Rocky hold out to the first, and you guys get some like grand prize first baby of the year?
If she held out to the first, the baby would be 45 weeks, and Mama wouldn't be too happy.
And Dusty might be 30 pounds heavier, stress eating.
So the quicker the baby comes out, the better. But we're expecting her within the next 7 days. So that's exciting. Dad life, experiencing dad life with incorporating the journey that I've done and finding a way to balance, dad life with work and everything in between, and skin surgery, hopefully. 2021, I think, is going to be a great year. I just haven't scoped out the full extent of what it could be, but I do believe that it's going to be one of my best years.
That's great.
A lot of changes coming. So,
and you do you do have a website, I think. You think you do some other things outside of Instagram or social media, but how are people going to continue following you in 2021?
So on my particular Instagram, it's Dusty lost 300 pounds with underscores under each one. With that, I do share on YouTube in a very limited capacity. It's pretty much longer talking points that I utilize YouTube for. As of right now, that's where I'm going. I'm hoping to expand that in the future. I've been doing accountability calls towards the tail end of 2020 that were really successful in the sense that I've got to really connect with folks, and I've been able to share and impart stuff that I've learned along the way in the sense of I wish I had someone that I could just talk to along my journey. Well, I've wanted to be that for many. So, potentially doing that and opening it up to, more things from potential webinars, website. I don't have a map for that, but I do have aspirations just because I know I've been able to impact so many people with my journey so far. If I have the potential to do that on a grander scale, I can't wait if that is a possibility. So,
yeah. And again, you're kind of just accepting the journey into next year, and you're going to keep doing what I think your intent is so true. At least it comes off that way. We don't know if you have any like diabolical plans in the background. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm still convinced he's some kind of, like Harvard educated doctor, like business model. They're doing some big catfish scam on all of us. And this guy, he just knows that. He knows philosophy. He knows the science. He knows
That's a compliment, to be honest. When people are like, "Oh, that's fake," it's like me knowing it's real.
Isn't that
you.
like the best compliment? It really is. I know they're stealing your stuff and that's aggravating and whatever, but blah blah blah. Like, isn't like that the best flattery? Really? I mean, seriously, like, whatever. Like, you're getting this story out. You're the best, man. Like, honestly, like, I can't wait. Congratulations on everything. The baby is coming. Send love to Rocky. You're awesome, man. Like, thanks for doing this again. I think you're recorded this time.
Fingers crossed. And I hope that this is one of many podcasts. We're going to have you on again for sure. And for love for you to continue sharing your journey. So appreciate all the insight you've given today.
Thank you for having me on.
Really good stuff.
It's honors all here, brother. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you for having me on, and I know we didn't cover some of the things we covered on the first podcast, so I'll just simply leave it open for the future ones.
It's amazing. It's amazing you think we're worth your time, Dusty. So,
thanks everybody for listening.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.